Quit rocking.
Yep, all wrong.
Trump. Is that not the same as? Yeah. Why do we got two different things? This is the one I think back here. Something's different.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, you can do it if you will.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Our invocation is going to be done by Pastor Tim Cook of the Wassamaw Baptist Church.
Let's pray. Father, I thank you for the great privilege you have given us to live in a town like Moncks Corner, South Carolina. I thank you for those that you have raised up to serve this community faithfully over its history. I thank you for this council, mayor today, who are watching over our lives. I thank you for those who are willing to serve. I know they have a lot of decisions to make. They'll be making some tonight. And I know that everyone in this room has opinions as to what needs to be done. But I ask that you would give your divine wisdom, that they might do that which is right, that which is best, that which will bring peaceful lives and prosperity to all that are in this town. We ask that you would be with our first responders, our policemen, firemen. I thank you for those who are willing to put their lives on the line for our good and our protection. May you protect them. May you bless them and their families. I thank you for all those behind the scenes that serve this community. They've done so faithfully because they care about people. May you bless their lives. In all that is done tonight, may you be honored. May your people be blessed. This I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Sweatman will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to start off today with some proclamations. The first one's going to be for the 2023 St. John's Christian Academy SCISA AA Varsity Boys State Champion Cross Country Team. Becky.
Mayor and council, at this time, with the 2023 SCISA 2A Varsity Boys State Champion Cross Country team come forward. And as they come forward, I'm going to read the proclamation. What's the... Whereas the Town of Moncks Corner Town Council is proud to recognize the historical achievements of the 2023 St. John's Christian Academy Varsity Boys Cross Country Team. And whereas the 2023 St. John's Christian Academy Varsity Boys Cross Country Team proudly won the SCISA Class 2A Varsity Boys Cross Country State Championship by a margin of 33 points, defeating all SCISA Class 2A schools. Whereas the 2023 St. John's Christian Academy Varsity Boys Cross Country Team, under the outstanding leadership of head coach Tony Stevens, were led by an outstanding group of players, namely Aiden Armentrout, Avery Armentrout, Hunter Brunell, Graham Damp, Isaiah Dennis, Elijah Fahey, Joshua Fahey, Donnie Juron, Jackson Lord, Aaron Martin, and Sam Staymeyer. Now therefore, I, Mayor Thomas J. Hamilton Jr., and the Town Council members of the Town of Moncks Corner do hereby proclaim February 20th, 2024 as St. John's Christian Academy Varsity Boys Cross Country Team Day in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, and hereby acknowledge and applaud their historical achievements.
Appreciate it. All right, everybody here. Thank you.
All right. Mayor. I just want to go down this thing down. All right, congratulations, guys.
Yeah, I guess.
What is it? I caught that.
Mayor and council, we also have more athletes from St. John's Christian that we'd also like to recognize tonight. And if they would come forward as I call their name. On St. John's Christian Academy, we had some players that were nominated and played in the North-South football game, and they are Jamin Hudson. And if y'all would just come forward. Leonard Huxford. Shane Roosh. Jackson West. And Drayton Dupree. And if we could give them a round of applause.
Skip over the volleyball players.
So they were on the South team for the North-South, and their team won 20-17. So congratulations. We also have two more athletes that we'd like to recognize from St. John's Christian, and that is Chandler Cumby. She was the SCISA Player of the Year, and Joanna Villapontu, who also was a North-South player that represented St. John's Christian. And Brittany Moss is their coach for the volleyball team. Thank you all very much.
One more, right?
That's it.
That's it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Joey, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They doubled it up.
Doubled it up.
We'll give them a minute to clear out.
See. I don't see a special guest. It's supposed to be here.
All right, now we'll move on to approval of minutes, regular meeting minutes from January 16th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, we'll come to the mayor's report. On January 23rd, I attended the first annual Martin Luther King breakfast hosted by the Berkeley County School District. They had many talented singers and gifted speakers. On 1/29/2024, we had the grand opening of Slim Chicken. Several council members attended, to include David Dennis, LaToya Lloyd, and Chad Sweatman. Also, several town staff members were in attendance as well. Also, on 1/29/2024, I went to the wrap-up luncheon for the Festival of Lights, along with members of the Recreation Department. On 2/6/2024, I went to Columbia for 2 days and attended the Hometown Legislative Conference and attended Session A of the Municipal Elected Officials Institute. Then on 2/12/2024, I went to the Charleston Area Transportation Study Policy Committee meeting where they talked about current and future infrastructure improvements on roads and bridges. Then on 2/16/2024, I attended the Berkeley County Restore Center meeting. This group brings all kinds of different people and resources together to address mental health, addiction, and homeless issues in our community. It's a really good program to get involved in. Some of the upcoming events that we have is We have our St. Patrick's Day Festival, Let the Shenanigans Begin, on Saturday, March 16th, 2024. It'll be in Main Street. We'll close the streets off. It'll be from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. We also have adult evening art classes, March and April, 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Classes are held at the train depot. You can sign up online. Something else that we're offering are youth art classes taught by Catherine Hester, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 3:30 p.m. to 5. It's a $15 per class, and this is something good if you have homeschool kids to reach out and sign up for. Save the date, Moncks Corner Farmers Market is coming back Thursday, April 4th, 3 p.m. to 7 at the Market Pavilion. In addition, I've talked to and met with several citizens and listened to their concerns about various issues concerning the town. I have addressed those issues through the appropriate channels. My commitment is to ensure every citizen has a voice and their concerns are addressed. And to finish up, I want to wish Councilman Chad Sweatman a happy birthday today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Now we'll go to the administrator's report. Jeffrey Lord.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I have a few things to cover with you tonight. First of all, the town received a PARD grant a while back to put benches at the rec complex along the sidewalk paths. And I think it's supposed to pay for 14 benches and some landscaping around them to beautify it. Those should be sited in either this week or next week, so hopefully we'll have those out soon. Good to get some grant money to do some good things in the rec complex. The next thing I want to talk to you about is we've been working to put more online forms so people can do more online without having to come into the office here. So recently, we've added the ability to pay hospitality tax, do waste cart applications online, and traffic complaint form, ribbon cutting. So these are all things, and there's several others. I won't go through them all. But there's just so many things that you can do now online and pay online where you couldn't before. But with the new website, we've been able to just continue to add things over time. Some things that we're working on to be able to rent the depot or the pavilion, so you can look at the calendar and see when available times are and rent it without having to call and talk to somebody. You can just do it online. So hopefully that will be done soon. The other thing I want to talk to you about is, if you remember, one of the projects that we've had for a few years is recodification of our ordinances. Every now and then you want to refresh your town ordinances to make sure they're up to date, that they meet state law, current court rulings and that kind of thing, and to make sure that there's not inconsistencies between the different parts of the code, because a lot of times if you change a part of the code, but you're not quite aware of how it impacted another part of the code, then you can have those inconsistencies. So we have contracted with Unicode, which is the company that we use to put our code online. They have a attorney who specializes in this. They'll go through our code, make those recommendations to clean everything up. Of course, those will go to Mr. Brogdon, and then it will come to you for approval. But we expect it to be no longer than a 20-month process, but hopefully it'll go faster than that. But it's really in-depth, going through with fine-tooth comb to make sure what we have is current. So very happy to have that started finally. And that concludes my report, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
No questions? Now we'll go to new business. We have an ordinance for the first reading. Consider the 2024 update to the town's comprehensive plan. Community Development Director Justin Westbrook will introduce Wyatt Stitley and Catherine Basha from the BCD Council of Governments to speak on the proposed 2024 comprehensive plan. Do I have a motion? Or am I there? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin. No, go ahead.
Motion. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. The long road is coming to an end now. The comp plan, as Administrator Lord said a moment ago about the city code, the comp plan is a vital resource that we have, and we hope to get it right per state law, as we're required to do. We've been working very closely with Catherine and her team, specifically Wyatt, on doing a comp plan. Comprehensive plan is, usually I use one analogy, I'll change it up. It's meal prep, right? It's what are we gonna eat for the next week? Our ordinance, our UDO, our zoning ordinance, that's what we're actually gonna eat today. So, Wyatt and his team have done a very good job of setting us up for the future as required by state law. And it's needed, as I think you might have heard the mayor speak earlier. This is required every 10 years by the state, to be a full update, and every 5 years to be a minor update. And, we're at the minor update, but, y'all and staff decided to go ahead and do the 10 years because of all the changes we've seen in the past 5. So with that being said, I think, have a nice plan set up. The Planning Commission approved last month, or recommended approval last month, and adopted a resolution that should be in your packet. We are still tweaking the plan itself with regards to aesthetics. That's why if you've looked at the previous plan we've had online, and we've tried to be transparent about that, it may look a little different. Wyatt and the graphics team with the Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester COG has done an excellent job of making it a pleasant to look at plan that we hope to utilize as well, right? So it follows well, it reads well, but it also looks good too. And that includes charts and facts and figures. We have 2 volumes. Volume 1 is the plan itself, the objectives and strategies that we hope to implement in the future. Again, not something that is going to be approvable, what we should do in the next couple of years to make sure this town grows in a responsible, desired fashion. And then volume 2 is the existing conditions. And that's kind of a prequel, so to speak. Where have we been? What do we have in the bucket already? What do we need to add? Where are our strengths? How can we strengthen our weaknesses? And what are those weaknesses? So with any other questions, I'll turn this over to Wyatt. He has a nice PowerPoint presentation. And then towards the end, if y'all have any specific questions, either him or myself could help you all along and make sure that all your concerns are addressed. All right?
Thank you.
Good evening. As Justin said, my name is Wyatt Staley. I'm with the VCD COG. So we're just going to kind of jump right into it. We're going to go over the comprehensive plan. So we kind of nicknamed this All Corners of the Community. That was the title that we came up with. That really reflects, the Moncks Corner, plays into that, but also kind of comes into the low country hometown theme and community character theme that this plan is going to reflect. Do you want me to do that? Oh, all right, awesome. So this is the planning process to date. So you can see that we started in about August of 2021. That is when the contract between the town and the COG began. A little bit moving past that to September, December 2021. That's when we started doing the coordination, the data research, kind of diving into, what the town has, the existing conditions, the current state of the economy, the population, all that stuff. We get into March, July, we go more into the public engagement part of the plan. So you can see in March, we did a council stakeholder interviews. And then in July, we had the public open house. We moved into September, October of 2022. That is when the public survey was released. And then in November, that's when the results were presented to Planning Commission. And then December of 2022, we had a joint Town Council and Planning Commission meeting. And then in February and March, we presented the plan, the draft plan, to the town for their review. And then we kind of had a little bit of a pause. And then back a couple months ago, in December 2023, that's when we kind of restarted this this plan, and we were in communication with the town. And since the numbers were all based 2 years ago almost, that we went ahead and redid some of the demographics because more up-to-date data was available. So we went ahead and did that. And then January, which was last month, we had the final plan and the land use discussion with the Planning Commission, and then they recommended it for approval, which brings us to right now. So what we'll be going over tonight, so as Justin mentioned, what is a comp plan? What is included in the plan? The planning process, the public outreach opportunities, the guiding principles, the community character element, which is something that unique to the town that we added, and then the opportunity areas, and then finally the future land use map and descriptions. So what is a comp plan? So this board may look familiar. This was one of the presentation boards that we had at the public open house. So what is a comprehensive plan? It is a long-range planning document that is a guidance for the town. It can be influential in implementing zoning decisions and redoing zoning ordinances, the land development ordinances, all that stuff. It is required by law, as Justin mentioned. It is every 10 years, it is required to do a complete update, and then every 5 years is a review. And as Justin mentioned, the town was due for a 5-year review. However, given all the changes, we went ahead and did a 10-year update just to kind of have a fresh start, a fresh plan, given all the changes. Oh, there it is. So what does a comp plan include? So it includes a vision statement that's usually formed by the public, whether that be the town council, the planning commission, stakeholders, the public. We kind of take all these opinions into consideration. We form a vision statement. So a list of goals and objectives that guide the town council, the planning commission, any governing body, and what to do for the community to fulfill the vision. An inventory of existing conditions, which you can see on the right, requires 10 elements, or includes 10 elements. So you have population, housing, economic development, transportation, community facilities, cultural resources, natural resources, resiliency, land use, and priority investments. And then an implementation strategy, which is kind of I like to call it an action plan. It gives you a list of objectives and actionable items that the town can use to be like, check this off. We're going to check this off. It kind of gives you a roadmap of how to implement the vision, right? And then finally, the future land use map and accompanying designations, it's at the very end. So the vision statement. The vision statement that the town had is, the town of Moncks Corner is an attractive, thriving community which provides opportunity for its citizens and businesses while remaining safe and fiscally sound. The mission statement, the town's mission is to provide reliable, quality services, protect our citizens and property, improve the quality of life, and promote development through managed growth. And the value statement was the purpose of the town is to provide safe, quality services, therefore customer service and professionalism are the highest priorities. For everyone we meet, we are the town of Moncks Corner. In everything we do, we will look the part, act the part, and do our part. So these three statements were were very influential in how we formed the rest of the plan, whether that was the guiding principles, the action plan, some of the opportunity areas. We wanted to make sure that those embodied the vision statement, because that was, again, formed for the people, right, for this plan. So this is the planning process kind of in a summary. So you can see that we are almost there. We are at step 8 out of 9. This is kind of going through what one of the first slides we had. This is just kind of a summary of the typical planning process that a town would go through. So as you can see, we're at step 8 out of 9. Final draft of the plan was presented before town council, and the public vetting process occurred, which is what tonight is. So following this meeting, the public vetting process, which is by state law, I believe is required for a month, 30 days. And that gives the public opportunity to provide input, provide commentary, and then allows the staff to kind of take those into consideration and then provide a new plan for the next meeting, which will be step 9. So the public outreach summary. So throughout the planning process, we had 3 different public engagement opportunities. The first one being the stakeholder council interviews. The second one being the public open house, and the third being the public survey. So this was intended to reach different members of the community. We had local leaders, we had general members of the public, then we had maybe a wider range on the online survey that maybe reached people who didn't live in Moncks Corner but still maybe shop in Moncks Corner, or who work in Moncks Corner, who go to school in Moncks Corner. So 3 different public outreach opportunities, all reaching different groups of the public. And so the public open house, which was held in July, we had several discussions, and some of the top concerns were increased traffic and traffic safety, overdevelopment and sustainable development, expanding economic opportunity, and the additional parks, recreation facilities / improving existing facilities. So the public participation survey, which was the third out of which was the last public participation opportunity. So we saw about 523 people respond to that survey. 262, which is about 50%, were actually lived in the town of Moncks Corner. So that goes to show that it's not just the people who live in the town who are concerned with the town, it's people in the adjacent areas who, like I said, maybe shop here, go to school here, work here, all that stuff. So it was available for about 45 days, took about 7 minutes, and you can see it had over almost 6,000 Facebook views, which is pretty great. Some of the demographics of these respondents, nearly 2/3 were female. Over half lived in Moncks Corner for at least 10 years. And then most respondents had some form of higher education. And then half had reported that they had a median household income or a combined household income of above $75,000. So you can see that we had, higher educated people responding, who therefore, likely translates into more money, right, in the household. All right. Some of the key takeaways from the survey. So the respondents were most concerned with overdevelopment and the increased traffic and decreased community character that typically follows. You'll see that that first one right there is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this whole plan, just because it was so widely expressed through all 3 different public outreach opportunities. Large residential lots were preferred over medium and smaller lots. However, mixed use does also have some favorable support as well. So mixed use would be maybe a commercial store on the bottom floor, maybe a 2nd-story apartment on the 2nd floor, right? Over half of the respondents discouraged small residential lots and multifamily residential lots. So, the maybe 10,000 square foot lots or less, and, multifamily use apartments, condos, that kind of stuff. Nearly half of respondents would sacrifice the low density housing, aka the large residential lots, to attract more businesses, services, and amenities to Moncks Corner. Respondents identified local restaurants, shops, and service-based businesses as some of the most needed land uses in the town, and this was specifically oriented towards the downtown area, the town center. And then low-intensity facilities, low-intensity recreational facilities, and amenities such as walking paths, trails, bike paths, and all that were actually more desired rather than, football fields, lacrosse fields, that kind of stuff. So the passive recreation rather than the active recreation. So part of the planning process, the guiding principles, we identified 6 of them. This process occurred more towards the beginning of the plan, beginning to middle, we'll say. In the beginning, we took a needs assessment. So after we did the data collection, we took an inventory of what exists. We did wetlands, we had population, we had housing, just the existing condition of the town, and we formed a needs assessment. Out of the needs assessment, we formed the guiding principles, and these 6 guiding principles, other than the vision statement, were probably the most influential part of the plan. Everything moving forward kind of supports these guiding principles, kind of is a use to implement the guiding principles. However, before we get into the volume 2, I do want to touch on one concern that we had in the volume 1. So in the existing conditions, we did have a small update that was in the current volume 2 plan. The big highlighted section, we have the town of Moncks Corner projections. When we did the data update, we didn't update this because the projections hadn't really came in yet. We were still kind of formulating them. We had we were building a new model, the travel demand model, which is a projection model that the COG uses. That was still kind of being developed when we decided to do this data update. However, after the discussion that we had in the end of December, beginning of January, when we decided to do this expansion area, we thought it would be appropriate to actually use the greater Moncks Corner area, this expansion area, right, this expansion of the town, to do a lot of the projections, right? If the town does intend to expand in this direction or that direction, it doesn't really make sense to just use projections of just the town, right? If we want to do accurate population, accurate housing, household enrollment, then we want to look at this greater Moncks Corner, which isn't limited to just the town boundaries, right? And this will be all explained much further, probably in the next meeting when we really do the actual update in the plan, and you can see the changes and you can see the text of why we made these changes. Oops. Come on. No.
Sir, can I pause you for a second while we're stuck on this slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in looking at this, the town of Moncks Corner projections on the left,
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at an upward path, and then I'm looking at a 6% projection. Are you saying on the left-hand side that we are more forecasting a 5% projection, which would be obviously underneath the 6%? Is that the alternate route where your changes came in at the COG?
So, the current existing conditions, we assumed that the town would stay about 4 to 5% of the county.
Okay,
However, given the 2020 and 2022 ACS numbers, we now think the town is 5 to 6%. So that's where we came into these numbers on the left. So as you can see, let me flip back here so I can.
so we're gonna fall in between those is where you're projecting.
Theoretically, so if the town were to stay exactly as it is right now, to stay within that 5 to 6%, this is about the population. So the town could, we would project that, you need X amount of housing to stay within this range. However, given the interest in expanding to certain areas, to assume that the town stays at that 5 to 6%, it could happen. However, it's probably not as realistic because the town's expanding in, if you double the size of the area of the town, it might be more 8 to 9%, which is why we thought it would be better to show the greater Moncks Corner area, because that is just showing the entire expansion area. And it doesn't matter which way the town expands in that area, this will be the cap that we are projecting for that whole, if the town were to do that whole 30-some square miles, probably not likely, the whole 30 square miles, this is the cap that we're projecting. So that's kind of why we wanted to put both of these up there so you can see what is the projections for just the town, which is what the left is, and for the greater Moncks Corner area, which is that expansion area, which is what the right is showing. And we'll go over kind of that boundary in the future land use map.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Well, here's my question. Oh, it's kind of loud. Looking at those numbers and looking at the first report that came out, it was projecting us to be 15,000 plus in 2035. The last year alone, they did 711 COs. And using the numbers from in here that you used per household was 2.69. That right there put us over 15,000 last year. Is that not correct?
Yeah, so the travel demand model that we use takes into consideration those additional units, right? So when the travel demand model kind of spreads all of the units across the county. So when we do these projections, we are taking into account those additional units because they've already been approved. So we already have that data. We are including that in the model. So these numbers may not be to the T right on the year, but this is kind of the projection that we are expecting because we know that this is from the county perspective, not necessarily just the town, right? The county is going to get this amount of growth. That's what we're projecting. This is what the share of the town is what we're projecting. Does that make sense?
No, maybe I'm confused. So if there was 711 homes approved last year, right, Justin?
Yes, sir.
And when we talked the other day, you said we're projecting at least another 1,000, possibly.
Yes, sir.
In 2024.
Yes, sir.
So forget what the county says. I'm talking about what he says and his staff says with their numbers. So theoretically, 15,000 is our population within Moncks Corner, correct? Probably
Yes.
right now?
Yes, sir. So to Wyatt's point, they started this process a couple of years ago.
Correct.
The best way to do that is use a model. They switched to the transportation demand model based on the county projections. The county is not as up to date on our own numbers.
Correct.
As we are, obviously, right? So I issue the COs. I don't generally make it a habit of talking to Berkeley County daily or anything like that. So the numbers that Wyatt and his team are using are from our historic growth based on the county growth, because the transportation demand model is more outside our city limits. So what we did is when we did this planning expansion area, we used a wider model, a wider net, so to speak, and that's using older data that is based on another jurisdiction. So to Wyatt's point, that 4 to 5 to 6% is based on what the county's growing at. We are obviously outpacing that, as
Correct.
you've noticed with the numbers, and the data just hasn't quite matched up.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this is not an exact science, it's statistics. It's our best guess. But the good news about this plan, in 5 years, we will look to be updating it anyways.
Okay.
And also, it is just that, a guess. We mentioned 1,000 homes in the next year. That's what we're projected after January. So we have a little ways to go to formulate those numbers. And those 711 COs that you talk about was just done December 31st. And we've run these numbers, Wyatt and his team have run these numbers for years now. And so we're trying to plug in the best numbers we have today for a model that may or may not have attributed that already.
Okay.
Constantly evolving.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Let's see if it's working. Battery's working. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Okay. That's not working? No. Okay, that's fine. All right.
It is now.
There it is. Oh,
Yep.
great. Thank you. So the community character element. So this is something that we added to the comprehensive plan that is not required by the state at all. This was something that we added based on the overwhelming concern from the public, from stakeholders, from council, that community character is going to be an issue for the town, or at least a concern among the residents for the foreseeable future, right? Given all the growth that's occurring, people just, that's the way they feel. So that's why we included this, to kind of address their concerns and provide a little bit of reassurance on, what community character is, and how it's going to be effective, and also how we're addressing, how we're remedying the concern, right? So you can see that we identified two kind of groups of community character, shared societal values, shared aesthetic values. So community character, what is it? So it's kind of the thought process of how do you perceive a town, right? The community character of it. You perceive it through shared societal values. Do you have a common family structure, education, social networks, demographic makeup, political ideology, community vision? All of this stuff is more of the social interactions, right, that kind of make up a community. Whereas the shared aesthetic values is more the physical makeup of the community, right? So a shared building design, whether if you have economic vitality, city beautification, common historic and cultural resources, the more physical structures rather than the more social structures. That's kind of the two columns that we identified when observing the community character from Moncks Corner. And it is important to note that a town isn't limited to one or the other but it's actually really important to have a mixture, right? Because if you have all these shared societal values, shared social interactions, but you don't have anywhere to do any of that stuff, like shared, you don't have parks to have those social interactions. You need kind of a combination of both. And that's kind of where we came into the two sections of town right now, because we have the old Moncks Corner, that has a lot of those shared societal values. That the history, you have the more historic homes, you have the downtown area. It has a combination of those shared societal values and shared aesthetic values. And then you have the US 52 corridor, which is obviously a much newer area, and it has it has more of the shared aesthetic values rather than the shared societal values, right? And like I said, it's important to have both of them, but it's also very possible to have one or the other. I mean, or a combination of some of these. It's the strategies that we're proposing hopefully will help integrate these two and have a shared vision, a shared community character across both sections of town. All right. Okay. So now we're going to go into the opportunity areas and the strategies. So these are kind of the main overarching topics of the plan. So a lot of these address specific concerns that has been raised, or maybe it talks about the strengths that the town has and are, like I said, the opportunity areas that the town can capitalize on in the future. So the first one is the quality of life and community assets. So one of the greatest opportunities in Moncks Corner is for the expansion of the parks and recreation services. So whether that is adding those walking trails that we talked about earlier from the public survey, or if that is expanding the regional recreation center, putting in the park in the Fox Bank area, improving the existing parks like Lacey and Grady Park. It is that is the greatest opportunity for the quality of life and community assets that we identified in the town. So the town also just completed a Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So we were in direct contact with them. We both shared the drafts of each other's plans to make sure that we're both proposing similar ideas and that we're not contradicting each other. So you'll see throughout the plan that we did reference their public survey as well, because we thought that just reinforces some of these ideas that we're proposing here. And I think they might have did the same thing. It is important for the town in the future to encourage the development of those walking trails, those bike paths, which I'm sure the town already does. Linking these pathways would provide a recreation bonus, but also a walkability bonus to the town. And then the last one is the tree removal. This was kind of something that fell. We didn't really know where to put it because, this could be natural resources, it could be quality of life and all that. So this was a concern that a reoccurring concern that a lot of people had about maybe somewhere in Berkeley County that was just chopping down all their trees, but then, they live in the town right across the lot, right? So the tree removal and trying to figure out a way to communicate and collaborate with Berkeley County in preserving the trees and at least maybe provide a riparian buffer around the property. That was something that was seemed pretty important to residents. So public services and infrastructure. Given the recent growth, there's a concern among the public that the quality of public services would potentially decrease, and those include like fire and safety, EMS, education, trash removal, and all that. And it's not necessarily that the quality, the actual service, but maybe the response time. That's what I'm trying. So, you call the police, and if there's 3,000 more people, then maybe the response time might be a little bit longer. So there's just that kind of concern. And then the education, obviously, crowded schools, trash removal, there's gonna be more trash in the road, all that kind of stuff. So the town should periodically assess current and future public services, whether that is through an adequate public facilities ordinance, an APFO, or a capital improvement plan, or if you include it in the comp plan, any kind of report like that, the town should periodically assess these types of conditions, which I would assume that the town probably already does. But it's important to keep that in there, keep it in a plan, just because you want to be able to reference, be like, all right, are we being in conformance with the comp plan? Yes, we are, because we keep doing these services, right? So over 90% of respondents from the survey indicated that they were concerned or very concerned about traffic congestion, which we'll get to in 1 second. And then to kind of help with the traffic congestion, the town should coordinate with neighboring municipalities, Berkeley County, BCD COG, SCDOT, and help mitigating those traffic concerns, maybe doing traffic safety plans and all that kind of stuff. And encouraging multimodal transportation options. So whether that be through Tri-County Link, whether it be designating certain areas as transit-oriented developments, or participating in the US 52 corridor study, those types of things will help address, or at least get the town involved in helping address those concerns. Because there was so much support, that, like I said, 90% were concerned or very concerned, we wanted to include this map. So this was based on the travel demand model that Justin and I were talking about earlier. And on the left, you can see that in 2019, most of the major roadways around the town are, we'll say, a greenish color. They are either level A or B, most of them. And then by 2045, you can see a lot of them are yellow and potentially red, right? So the green represents a more free flow traffic. There's during peak rush hour, there's not, you can change lanes freely. There's just a free flow of traffic, where the red, you can see delays. You can see you can't just change lanes freely. There's just more of a hindrance on the traffic. So you can see why this is kind of supporting the concern that residents are having. It's not that they're just, oh my gosh, this road has so much traffic. Our projections are saying that traffic is going to, slowly get more towards the yellow and red. And so now's the time to start thinking about, traffic safety improvements, traffic mitigation, stuff like that. Economic development and affordability. So when we were doing the comp plan, we identified 3 commercial nodes within the town. So we had the town center, the US, we'll say the highway commercial, which is just right of the town, and then the Fox Bank, Cypress Gardens, kind of that commercial node down in the south of town. So those were the 3 areas that we identified. High quality public services and available utility capacity and abundance of undeveloped or underutilized land. All of those, which are community assets, they can be used as pull factors to get businesses into the town, which is obviously important. Capitalizing on the short distance between the town center and the recreation is something that we kind of hit hard in the plan, creating this recreation destination, which I believe the town is, pretty adamant on doing, because, they built this beautiful center. They're having all these statewide tournaments. That's exactly the type of opportunity that the town can then capitalize on to kind of bring those tournament people who are staying, to maybe bring them in the town center, right? And go to their businesses, go to the restaurants, go to the salons and all that stuff. However, mentioning the town center, it is important in the future that the town specifically delineate between highway commercial and then maybe town center commercial. So that's something we'll talk about in the future land use element, but we want to make sure that in that element, the future land use element, we specifically target commercial services like restaurants, salons, those service type businesses, kind of pushing them more towards the town center rather than auto-oriented businesses, maybe like your gas stations, your car washes, pushing those more towards like the US 52 corridor and all that, where you have that development that's going along. You have the traffic. That's what I'm trying to say. The pass buyers, and then allowing for a neighborhood commercial uses, like I said, the salons, kind of those low intensity uses into kind of not just in the town center, but maybe just in like the expansion areas. We'll call them the mixed use overlays. That's what we called it in the future land use map, to encourage, these small uses that don't have a lot of traffic demand, to kind of also have a place rather than just in the small town center. But we want to make sure that we're providing a little bit of flexibility for the town. So that's why we called out these mixed use overlays. And the final one is quality of growth. So this one is kind of hitting directly on the community character issue that I brought up earlier. So we want to make sure that throughout the plan that we were focusing on quality of growth rather than quantity of growth. That was something that should be a top priority for the town moving forward, which I'm sure it probably already is. Promoting those, promoting the quality development rather than just rushing all these houses. It can be very tricky. Comp plans are supposed to be a very proactive document, but oftentimes they can be so reactive, right? We want to make sure that we are putting policies and recommendations in here so that way the town can use them in the future to be like, all right, we want to require X, Y, and Z. And if the developer would be like, well, that's not consistent with your comp plan, you'd be like, well, yes, it is right here. It says we want to require this, this, and this to ensure that we're getting the highest quality development we can, right? So the allowing for a mixture of uses, mixture of housing densities and uses in the town center and surrounding areas will help maintain that housing affordability that can kind of, when you have these larger lots, these bigger homes, that kind of, it doesn't help the affordability, the attainability of housing, right? We want to make sure that we're putting policies in here that allow beginner families, young professionals, and people with kids or maybe who are 55 and older on fixed income can still obtain a house in Moncks Corner. We want to make sure that we're addressing that here, and that's why we talk about the housing affordability and attainability, right? Because sometimes affordable housing can kind of have a mixed definition. We want to make sure it's affordability and attainability, right? I'm sorry, I'm going to go back for 1 second. And so this was the public survey graph that we actually we compiled. So you can see on the very bottom, traffic congestion had very concerned and concerned went all the way up to 90%. And you can see overdevelopment and suburbanization was one of the bigger ones. Quality of public services, preservation of natural resources. Those were all pretty high concerns of the public, and which is why we included it here, just so you can see kind of the different levels, the different questions that were asked and the different levels that they responded to. And finally, for the quality of growth, we want to, when we talk about the future land use map in a second, it is important for the, as I mentioned, to delineate between those kind of auto-oriented commercial areas versus the town center, right? And so a lot of the suburban commercial nodes, while they're economic development, and everyone loves economic development, they also can be slightly harmful to the town center because they're drawing those service businesses away from the town center. So it's important when we go into the future land use that we do delineate, as I mentioned, the business-oriented, or the service-oriented businesses, those salons, the restaurants, those smaller retail, those walkability retail stores that typically are found in the downtown. We want to make sure that we're encouraging them in the downtown rather than allowing the suburban centers to kind of take the feasibility, the economic feasibility away from them by providing lower rents. We want to make sure that we're providing services for everyone in town, not just in the suburban areas or the rural areas, but kind of everywhere. Which leads us to the future land use map and descriptions. So unfortunately, I could not put all the descriptions on the slides, but you all have copies. So I encourage you to read them as we kind of go through them. So the first one you can see is parks and open space. Then we have rural town transitional residential, town character residential, suburban character residential, neighborhood mixed use, town character mixed use, downtown commercial, highway commercial, institutional, industrial, and then we have highway commercial overlay and mixed-use commercial overlay. And a larger scale of the map should be in the packets. I know it can be kind of hard to read on the screen. So before this expansion area was added, the town was, we just had the town boundary, and we had future land uses within the town boundary. After discussion with the town, with town staff, we added this expansion area because we know this is the direction the town wants to go in. So we thought, well, if that's the direction, we know that that's gonna be in the future, we might as well include it in the future land use map. So that's where you can see that in the legend, the expansion areas are kind of a dashed, or a dashed fill. So those are kind of very similar to the normal future land use designations, except we added one, and it's let's see. Gosh, it's so small. The town character mixed use, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong thing. So that was the one that is only in the expansion area and not in the actual town boundary. And we can go back to this one, but in a minute. But so that's kind of the gist of the comp plan. So what is next? So the public review process begins. So that begins tonight. That allows members of the public to review the draft, ask questions, provide comments, as I mentioned earlier. The staff will take those comments into consideration, and then we'll provide a public review summary to the town council at the next meeting, highlighting all the changes that we made based on the input that we received. And then we also will be doing a QC check during this time period to just kind of remove those highlighted sections that you guys have noted about, to kind of anything that was maybe X% or figure X, we'll just go through, fill all that stuff in now that we know this is the structure of the plan, right? We didn't want to go through all numbering everything, only to take 4 charts away and then have to renumber it again. So that's the stuff we always kind of leave to the very end. Those are the types of changes that you'll expect for the public review summary. And then along with, the QC process, that's gonna be mostly focused on volume 2, not really volume 1. Volume 1's pretty set in stone. Pending any, major questions from you guys, any major policy decisions, as far as the public standpoint, the staff standpoint, we've already did the QC check for that. We're just kind of waiting on that public input process, which is why the drafts you guys have are, we'll say, a 95%, just pending that last 5% for the public input in your review, okay? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple if I could.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, you went back over where the survey was taken. Where all was this survey taken to put this together?
The website?
Like, where was it disseminated to for the public to be able to be surveyed for this?
Yeah, so during the public open house, we had, I don't want to go back all the way. Can we get back all the way to the beginning? So you can see the bottom left of that picture, we actually had a QR code at the bottom, and that was directly linked to the survey. So during the first day of the survey was released was the public open house. So it was distributed, I believe, it was obviously here, and then whenever we did, we put out I believe a press memo, whatever that phrase is called, and then we also had it on the town website. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one, unless Jay's got another one.
I'm okay, thank you.
Good. In there, it said, limiting the PD designation to 50 acres. And I think just in our ordinance says 25 acres.
Yes, sir.
And so what we got to decide is, do we want to list it as a 50 acre or a 25 acre?
This is a recommendation.
Correct.
By the COG of
Correct.
what they've seen. Obviously, Wyatt and his team work with a variety of different municipalities in and around the Charleston area. They're up to date on the newest trends of what other jurisdictions are doing and where they're seeing success. And that's one of their recommendations is larger land area for planned developments. And that trends, right? So we're seeing larger plans that are more thoughtful, more inclusive of different mixed uses and things of that nature, take on a larger footprint, so to speak. What we don't want to do is allow people to develop very similar under those benefits, right? So there's pros and cons of a planned development. A pro of the planned development is you negotiate with staff, town council to get maybe relaxations of the rules or new and innovative things in exchange for the special, more thoughtfully designed plan that you all end up approving. What we don't want to do is somebody to use that same benchmark to come up with their own rules on something that is not as thoughtful or as impactful as 25 acres or 50 acres. So we want to make sure that we provide the tools, but that we're not using them indiscriminately and making sure that they're appropriately applied. So that's one of their recommendations was maybe the 25 acre rule that we've looked at in the past is lacking a little bit. And we've cracked the door a little bit too much for developers to use that mechanism when they probably should be looking at other means to zone property.
And it comes down to what I mentioned earlier is kind of that quality versus quantity, right?
Correct.
Now, the 25 versus 50, if you have 50, or if you have 25 already on the books, then, in my mind, that's a good thing, right? You don't want to have any sort of, 1 acre lot having a planned development. It's probably not a good idea. But we put a number in there based on our just knowledge of the area. That number can be changed. If you like the 25, then we want to change that to 25, we can do that. If you want to see it up to 100, we can do that. We put a number in based on our, like Justin said, a recommendation.
Right.
But you guys have the ultimate say, right? If you, like I said, 25, 100, then we can do that. But the point of it is to kind of promote the quality of development versus the quantity, because we've seen that happen in other areas as people take advantage of that.
To add to Wyatt's point, y'all technically have two chances, two bites at the apple, right? This plan is a plan. It's not actual policy. It's adopted policy guidance is the phrase I've always used, right? This is what y'all want to see in the future. This is not, if you change it to 50 tonight, any new zoning that comes in shall be 50 acres. So that actually will require a text amendment. When we look at this, the normal operating procedure or modus operandi of a comp plan is, this is the first chance to say, listen, and I'll use my old analogy. This is a bucket list of what do we want to do in the next 5 years? What changes do we want to implement? This is not, we're implementing the changes. This is, what changes do we want to see? Maybe some of these changes in 2-3 years are terrible. Maybe we haven't thought of things in 2-3 years that this plan doesn't cover. That's okay. The second bite of the apple is when we go through a UDO rewrite or the zoning ordinance rewrite and say, listen, now we have to decide, right? Tonight's the deciding night. Do we want to do 25 acres, which what the comp plan says? Do we want to do 50? It's just another tool. This comp plan is another tool in y'all's toolbox when making these decisions. It is not binding. So to Wyatt's point, we can change it to 100, we can change it to 50, which is what he recommends tonight. But in the future, when we actually get down to the nitty gritty of implementing some of these changes, that's when the real debate will begin with timeout. Is this what's best for Moncks Corner today? Wyatt's projecting what will be best for Moncks Corner in the next 5 to 10 years. But it's not binding, so don't get too scared of the number, but it's a good question.
Okay.
Any others?
I do want to ask you one other thing. On the quality of life in the community assets, it says on here, it's just very vague. So I'm wondering if there was any depth to this question. It says 72% of the respondents want to see more parks and recreation type uses within Moncks Corner. But there's no specification as to what type of parks and those types of things we're looking at. Obviously, we have a lot of walking area, a lot of street sidewalks now, a lot of sidewalks in the new park area. I'm trying to get a handle on when it says 72% want to see more parks, what kind of parks are we talking about exactly? And when it talks about walking trails, are we talking about they want to see walking trails where? Through the downtown area, through the Is there some specification on that to give us some direction?
Jay, was that not outlined on 14, page 14?
It is, but I still didn't think it was specific enough to kind of, I wanted a little bit more direction from what he was thinking on that.
This plan is the overall growth of the town, right? The question that you're asking is a little bit more specific than this plan is designed to answer. But the good news is, White and the BCD COG worked very closely with our master parks plan. So basically, where this is lacking, we have a more specific plan. For example, this mentions transportation, but we don't have a transportation plan. Where do we need to see the improvements, right? Mainly that's held by the Berkeley County and SCDOT. But this is a 30,000-foot elevation request. The smaller plans that are more specific that this references, the master parks plan, for example, which, if I'm not mistaken, some of these statistics and survey results came from the administrator and Becky's work on the parks plan.
Sure.
That's where that picks up that, slack is not the right word, but that's where that picks up that ball and keeps that rolling.
Well, and I think to Councilman Sweatman's point, on page 14, it's outlined. You've got 20% tennis pickleball. I know what we're talking about there. But 75% is walking, running pass. And then you've got 69% are exercise fitness trail. What's the difference?
The fitness trail and the exercise trail in planner speak is really, they have that in Burley and Jim Myers, the Sawmill Parkway.
Sure.
You walk 100 yards and then you have a push-up zone. You walk another 100 yards, you have pull-ups, right? The idea of this survey is we can make this as specific as y'all want when we get down to changing the rules. For example, one of the things that I've been part of is when we allow subdivisions to come in, we can base it on a plan we already have for greenways and put that in, and the developer will put that in for us and we'll solve for that 69, 70% that you're talking about. But that can take on a variety of roles or flavors based on what y'all want to see. If y'all come to me and say, Justin, we need greenways. I don't care how we get it, we need greenways. Well, this plan coincides with that idea. We changed the ordinance that thou shalt, if you do any subdivisions, if it's adjacent to our greenway plan, y'all put in the greenways for us. That's not even something you're doing for us, that's a requirement. But that takes on a different role of exactly what you want to see later down the road when we start implementing these policy guidance to become actual policy.
Well, I think that's the thing, is that when we are accepting a comprehensive plan, I want it to be comprehensive and know what exactly the public is asking for. So when it says something like this, I just want to make sure that we have the clarity on that, and that was what my question was too. But thank you.
We want to make sure that the plan is specific in certain aspects, but also very vague in other aspects, right? We don't want to pigeonhole the town by saying we want to pursue these specific things to do this one specific thing, right? Because then if you do anything else, for whatever reason, then it's not in conformity with the plan. So that's why we try to leave, 75%, support parks, right? Because then the town has so many options on how to implement, how to address those concerns, and it leaves the town some flexibility on, what to do, right? While we can provide the numbers with, the 70% of this, 70% said that. But when it comes to the public support, they're going to see that 75, and if you do any kind of park, they're like, oh wow, they're really paying attention, right? So it's a two-way street where it's saying, we want to be vague enough where you can do anything you want, but we also want to be specific, and so that way the town can be like, this is how we're improving the town based on the outreach that we received, right? We are taking it into consideration. Now here's how we're responding. So it's kind of an accountability, kind of a pat yourself on the back type of thing. That's why we included a lot of these more vague ideas in here, so that way the town can pursue them in any way they want, and then come back to the public and be like, we listened, here's how we addressed it, right?
Well, and that's a very good point, because that's what I want to make sure of, is that we're listening, and that we're listening to the overall picture, right? It's sort of like senior activities on here is 35%. But then I have to question, when we did this report, how many of our seniors were clicking on QR codes or on Facebook? Are we missing a big element there of our seniors of what they really want? And it's hard to know that. And I know that we're not I know this does not necessarily dictate exactly what we're doing, but it was just a question I had, and of course that spiraled to there. So I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Any other input? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
No more discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it.
The next agenda item, the ordinance is being continued at the request of the applicant, so we won't be talking about that tonight. Now we'll go to old business. We have ordinance, second reading and public hearing. Consider a conditional zoning map amendment, CZ-23-03, request for 5 parcels, TMS 123-00-060-060-061-062 and -063, totaling 1.8 acres, located on Reed Hill Road from C2 General Commercial to CZ R4 multifamily residential to allow up to 45 dwelling units. Justin?
Yes, sir. I'll be brief, as this is a second reading, and we've had some changes, but not much. The data is what the data is. As the mayor mentioned, this is 5 parcels. They are currently zoned, they were zoned R3 back prior to 2022. They were then rezoned to C2, our general commercial, in 2020. And then the R3 split into R3 and R4 zoning in April of 2022. And then the applicant has now sought out R4 in October of 2023, but then once they realized the density challenges compared of what they needed to make the plan work, revisited that. So that's why we're conditionally zoned R4 now. These are the 5 parcels to give you a wider scope of where the parcels are. Obviously, you can see the big white blob in the middle is the Walmart. You have Tail Race to the right. As more detailed, you can see the marina construction going across the street. With the restaurant, you have obviously the boat slips. You have the Hidden Cove development, the existing Hidden Cove development down to the Plan Southeast, or the Slide Southwest, I'm sorry. As you can see, this is our current zoning. The area is not colored as in the county. The area is colored, obviously, that dark red is the C2, which is our general commercial. And you can see that R3, that is a mapping error. We're working with the county now. That is actually R4, since those are, in fact, multifamily. And then you have the conservation, which is everything on the other side of the tail race. The zoning around it is R4 primarily, with a little bit of R2, which is the marina and restaurant, and you do have some Flex 1, that uncolored area. Flex 1 is largely the residential agricultural zone for Berkeley County. It is vacant, at least adjacent to this parcel. Further down on Hidden Cove, where I believe that's Reed Hill, is some other facilities, but it's not adjacent to these properties. The C2, the R4 zoning allows for multifamily residential, otherwise known as vertically attached condos, short, daycare, residential, libraries, fire stations, the like. So a very limited amount of uses. That's a very stark, comparatively speaking, to C2, which is general commercial, which allows almost anything retail, and other non-retail uses. Special exceptions, churches, and other incidental uses associated with that, as well as public parks, require special exceptions before Board of Zoning Appeals. The density for the project is 18 acres, R4. Specifically R4, just straight R4 zoning would be 16 dwelling units per acre, or 28 dwelling units. The conditional zone request tonight is 25 dwelling units per acre, totaling 45 units on approximately 2 acres. It's a little less. Transportation, as we mentioned, a TIA will be required. I will mention that here in a second, but the TIA will be required just because staff does feel that it's necessary. The trigger is 50 units, but or at the zoning administrator's discretion. Obviously, this is going to have a big impact on Reed Hill, and so we'll touch on that in a minute. The conditions. This is something different. The only condition you all saw at the last meeting was to allow up to 45 dwelling units. Staff went back through the meeting minutes and worked with the applicant to make sure that we addressed your concerns to the best of our knowledge and our ability at that point. So there's 2 steps there's 3 really, to development. The first step is planning and zoning. It's really zoning. Do you have the zoning in place? That's what we're decided tonight. The next step is planning and requires a site plan. Site plan approval, so you gotta have zoning in place before you can move to step 2. Step 2 is the site plan. You have to have that meet the zoning ordinance and the land development regulations and my sign off before you can move on to step 3. Step 3 is actual physical construction and building permits. Without step 2 in place, you do not move on to step 3. My team won't even allow a building permit to be applied for on property that's not zoned properly, A, or B, step 2, is a site plan or preliminary plat approval. I will not do that until these conditions have been met. For a site plan, a TIA shall be performed in accordance with the section of our zoning ordinance. Now again, this is kind of a catch-all, it's duplicitous, but I wanted to make sure that it was in there so y'all felt comfortable with that. That was gonna be required anyways, but what's the harm, right? Third, prior to the issuance of CO. CO is the final stage for step 3. When buildings go vertical, a CO is issued at the very end. That's when they can be sold. So prior to any of these being sold, rented, occupied by the general public, these conditions shall be in place. All recommendations from the TIA shall be designed, installed, inspected. I apologize, that's a typo. That should have happened under the site plan. So TIA shall be designed, installed, and processed with the site plan. Without a site plan approval and the traffic impact analysis and the improvements done, I'm not issuing the site plan. Prior to CO, the swimming pool and shelter, which they had mentioned previously and y'all were interested about, I wanted to make sure that that was done. I have been burned in the past personally, where a developer promises an amenity and it never happens. We let the CO go out the door and there goes all our leverage. I want to make sure that y'all understand I'm here to fight for y'all and make sure y'all get everything you promised. The following materials shall be utilized. Some of this is duplicit as well, but want to make sure it gets in there. Cemented siding, otherwise known as hardy plank. Standing seam galvanized metal roof. That is to mimic the development across the Tail Race Marina, including the restaurant and the boat storage, or the ship store, I'm sorry. And powder coated railings, making sure that that's in there. This is to make sure that we're including quality of development that matches what's already out there to improve the area, which is why conditional zoning is give and take. They want more density, y'all want higher quality standards. So that's kind of where it is. Another thing that we mentioned was a nice buffer. We wanted to actually prescribe a specific buffer from our zoning ordinance, so we have that to hang our hat on. A type A yard, I believe in the staff report, it mentions how many trees. I believe it's 3 per 100 linear feet plus 15 shrubs. Could be wrong, but those numbers are in there. But the type A yard is something that A, will fit in with their preliminary plan to make sure we can make it fit. And B, is something the developer is willing to do to help make this go forward. Those are the conditions right now. Again, to kind of highlight and gloss over this, it is consistent with our residential high density development and our current 2017 comp plan of slightly more than 8 dwelling units per acre, but it is more than 8 dwelling units per acre. This is the future land use map of our current 2017 plan. As you can see, it's highlighted that dark orange, which is indicated to be high density residential. You can see the red adjacent to it, which is the Walmart, the Chick-fil-A, the Jimmy John's, the other things out there, which really is conducive to high density residential like we spoke about last meeting. Is more zoomed in. The pixelated areas, again, was the county. On the other side of Reed Hill, as this plan was not included, or the parcels across the marina were not included in the town in 2017, we've since annexed that. That's why it's still pixelated. It is in harmony with 3 land use goals, like Wyatt said earlier, where we're using goals and strategies of our comp plan. We have them now in our current plan. 3 of them that this plan meets is up on the screen. Adjacent to existing land uses, promote development that's appropriate, and is consistent with land use patterns and encourage new growth where appropriate. This is the overall site plan that we covered. Again, we have an orange building and a blue building. Not great colors this past weekend, but we're working on it. We have 45 units. It's 3 stories tall, 2 different buildings, 3 stories tall each. One has 5 units in it. The other one has 8, I believe, the remainder, 9, to equal 45. They are 3 stories tall, which 1 unit per, they're stacked, just like Connect 4. This is a highlight of the orange building. To zoom it in, you can see the stairwell and elevator shaft to the south. You can see another stairwell to the north. The gate, which is that dashed line with the circle, kind of outlines the property. That's all grass green area. I believe owned by Hidden Cove Homeowners Association, or POA, which overlooks it. You can also see the sidewalk that connects. It goes off the plan. So this will be a walkable community, particularly against the amenities that it looks to serve. The blue plan, you can see the kind of an outline of what where a pool could fit. Cabana, I know that Mr. Rake spoke very highly of some sort of outdoor kitchen area, something for another amenity beyond the pool. You can see that units 5 through 15 on the first level, and obviously they go up 2 more levels, are staggered, so you get that beautiful view Mr. Rakes was talking about. This is a conceptual plan. Again, it doesn't exactly match the site plan, but these are just pretty pictures. The site plan will come later when the engineering work is done, but it gives you an idea of what it could look like. Parking for 2 of the units underneath each stack with 2 other units on Surface Street. You can see those around there as well. It does align with our residential heavy density, like I mentioned earlier, from the 2017 comp plan of more than 8 dwelling units per acre. It could become, as I mentioned, with the sidewalks and adjacent commercial, a very walkable community with system of interconnected trails. That's a direct quote from our 2017, so you know it jives. The density may be too much for the town. Y'all surprised me. I thought 25 dwelling units per acre would be a little bit outside of Moncks Corner character. It's y'all's decision. I've obviously worked places that 25 was not much. It's more than what we've experienced. But is it appropriate in this area? Staff seems to feel that it may be, but it's ultimately y'all's decision. 14 dwelling units per acre is what's allowed now. I take that back. 8 dwelling units per acre is what's allowed now, up to 16 in some instances, but Waterleaf and other recently approved, we're seeing about 15. But Waterleaf was part of a PUD as well, so it's designed to be more walkable. This kind of fits in nicely without having that PUD overall plan. That being said, Planning Commission heard this on December 27th, 5-0 vote, recommended approval. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, staff cautiously recommends this, again, with those conditions in place. I'm available for any questions. I know Mr. Rakes is here as well, and I'd be happy to help.
Justin,
Yes, sir.
on the, on several of the things that we'd asked for, I know it had been mentioned that the property was gated. Is that something that, if approved, that becomes part of that plan at this point?
No, sir.
Okay, so that is not added in there. What about surface parking? Is it asphalt? Is it concrete? Is it?
All required parking on a site has to be either paved, asphalt, or concrete. So we will get one of the two. It will not be gravel.
Okay,
It'll probably be a combination of both, you know, because we
Okay.
can't do our ADA, all of our sidewalks will be concrete, and then the majority of the parking will be asphalt. Or a pervious, I like pervious paving as well, so, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with that, it's like a dry mix concrete that, you know, allows water to go through it. And,
Right.
you know, it's got a whole lot prettier effect than just black asphalt.
sure. Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to say that I appreciate how the staff and the developers work together to address our concerns. I think it says a lot when we can work together to try to come up with a solution that helps everybody. Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this matter? Oh.
Yeah, before we finish. The gated element of this, is that something that you are planning to do?
Yes, sir.
Is that something that we can add into this that you would be comfortable with?
Sure, and what I'd like to do is possibly add it into the buffer area, you know, just
Okay.
depending if we can work together on figure out, you know, because we are limited on space, and, you know, one of the reasons we're having to, you know, asking for more density is just because of the amenities, you know, and the elevators making it, you know, ADA accessible for
Right.
everyone, so, you know, those expenses are why we're asking for the, you know, the added density. But yes, to answer your question, if we can work on some sort of design for that buffer, you know, and incorporate whatever fence we're gonna put up, that'd be ideal with us.
Okay. Thank you.
To be clear, did you want the entire perimeter fenced or just the entrances gated?
What was your plan?
So our plan is to probably fence the whole thing in. You know, and I'm on the board with Hidden Cove as well, and we're trying to improve that place. But just from a, you know, a privacy aspect, you know, having it kind of, and we're gonna also do, there's an existing sidewalk from the existing Hidden Cove that we will eventually tie in through that one little area that's along the water there.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, we'd like to fence the whole thing and make it as private as possible.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
you go back to the PowerPoint, please? Yeah, Yeah, there's a rendering on here on one of the slides that shows a nice, I'm not gonna say wrought iron, but it looks like a wrought iron all the way around the perimeter. I wanted to make sure that we include, so you can see there, it looks like brick columns or some sort of columns, and it's gated all the way around. I wanted to make sure that either if it's just the entryway, the driveways we care about gating, or the entire property, for clarification purposes. I know his intent is to show all the way around, but I just want to make sure if we get it on the plan, we articulate exactly what it is we expect.
And I think it'd be something consistent with the powder-coated handrails on the front and back balcony. You know, some sort of similar design to that.
I agree.
And just contrasted on there, I'm sure, you know, I would think so it sticks out and everybody can see it, but it's not gonna be like one of them's gonna be black and one of them's gonna be white.
That's the only thing I had seen in the ordinance that wasn't there that I felt like we should have, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I agree with that.
So, Mayor, if that's something that you want to add, then the motion would need to be to approve the ordinance with the additional condition of gate and fence around the property.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this matter? All right. Do I have a motion which include Councilman Law's request of, Jay, could you tell exactly what you want?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance as stated with the addition of a surrounded powder-coated gate that would include a gated entrance as well as the entire property being fenced in a powder coat to match the balconies. Thank you.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
All right, we did not have anyone sign up for public input tonight. Now I'm going to we're going to go to executive session for discussion of to receive legal advice regarding the provision of fire service, contractual matter pertaining to the court, negotiations related to a contractual matter regarding recreation. Do I have a motion to go to executive session? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. We're in executive session. And blue. Bring it in with you.
It's actually just here in paper. So, it's okay, I am too.
Arby's, it was a.
Y'all still here?
We are talking food and we're.
Get them back. Let them sit down. Yeah. All right, do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No, we're out of executive session. There was no action to report out of executive session. And do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Benjamin Bishop as associate judge.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned. That was a long one. I'm gonna try. I'm sorry. Hey, I appreciate